The new update just dropped and we have got our first 12.0 premium plane ever added into War Thunder. It costs a whopping 75 US dollars. And what does 75 US dollars get you? Well, it gets this nice little cockpit here with these cool little gauges. I thought that was pretty neat, so I want to include it. Not much of a feature, but you know, there it is. We are of course going to be looking at the F-20 today, and I want to just go ahead and get all the novelties out of the way real quick first that we can do in Hangar. Firstly, the skins. This is your standard skin. This is what you're gonna get if you just buy the plane outright. This is a GE skin that you can purchase afterwards. It's only 200 golden eagles. It makes your plane gray. And this is the pre-order skin for pre-orders only. If you want to use this plane in ground RB, this is your cast loadout. You do get access to AGM-65Bs, and that's probably going to be your main weapon, and they are pretty cool to have. You can also have two 9Ls in combination with that. Now, I don't want to waste any of your time. I do want to give you a straightforward answer here before we get into the rest of the video. Do I recommend buying the F-20 Tiger Shark for $75? Well, no, I really don't. On one hand, I'm sure a lot of people really love the F-20 for some reason, one or the other. They enjoy the F-20 as a plane. It's got some kind of weird following behind it. It's just one of those planes. I'm sure you know what I mean. And so if you want to pick it up for that very reason, just understand it's pretty damn expensive. I really don't think it's worth the money as a grinder, especially when you look at planes like the F-5C. And I think that is a much better option. It's a cheaper option, and it's going to be able to help you research the exact same stuff as of right now. But not only that, I think the F-5C is actually on the stronger end of its battle rating, whereas the F-20 is on the weaker end of its battle rating. Sure, this plane can be used effectively in the 12.0 battle rating bracket, and especially so if you get it down tier, it's honestly pretty enjoyable and pretty good. That being said, when you compare it to its peer aircraft at the 12.0 battle rating, it's definitely on the lower end. I'm talking about the F-16A, the F-16ADF, the F-16AJ, the F-16 MLU, and debatably the MiG-29s. The only 12.0 that I really for sure would rather have the F-20 over is the Yak-141. Granted, there is not a lot of 12.0s, sure, so maybe it's not the most fair comparison. That's pretty much all of them. I just listed them there. So let's take a look at 11.7s. Well, it's pretty much the same story. There's not a lot of 11.7s either, and about half of them I prefer over the F-20 from a competitive standpoint. I would much rather be in an F-14A, I would rather be in a Mirage 2000, and again, debatably, I would rather be in the J8F, and that leaves pretty much just the F4EJ Kai that I would take the F-20 over. And so all in all, it can work at the battle rating of 12.0. I'm not saying it's a bad plane per se, I'm just saying that there's a lot of aircraft that I think are more competitive, especially so at its own battle rating, but even so at battle ratings underneath it. And so again, I do recommend you pick up the F-5C instead. If you're looking for a US grinding aircraft, the F-5C is going to be the better option. I do have a discount link, it's 3% off. You do not get a decal yet with my link, unfortunately. I will let you guys know when my decal is out, but if you want to use my link, I would greatly appreciate it. Get yourself 3% off, and whether it be the F-20, the F-5C, I don't really care. It's your choice in the end of the day, but I would recommend the F-5C. So that's a quick summary for those of you possibly interested in buying the F-20 and you care about what I have to say about it. Well, there's my take on it. What do you actually get with the F-20 though if you do buy it? Well, the flight performance is not that bad, but again, at 12.0, you're pretty much with nothing other than F-16s and MiG-29s. And so while you can beat a MiG-29 in a 1v1 pretty easily, the F-16s are going to absolutely rinse you. Mirage 2000, again, as I mentioned before, does have better flight performance for 1v1s. That's going to be a tough plane to dogfight in the F-20, and even the F-14A and the F-14B, especially so the B, is going to give you an extremely difficult time as you're playing this aircraft. It does have decent thrust to weight for its battle rating. It's got a decent engine. I believe this is an F-18 engine on an F-5 airframe essentially. So the power generation is definitely there, and you do feel like you have the engine power to actually move around the map, switch targets, do what you need to do. And as long as you're actually paying attention to what you're doing, it's not too easy to get super slow in this aircraft. Just like the normal F5, it likes being fast. That Mach 0.8, 0.9 range is where it really shines. And then once you start getting into lower speeds, it starts to really struggle when it comes to actually holding energy and being a maneuverable, viable dogfighting plane. I do like the flaps of this airplane. It does have combat flaps, which is very useful for high-speed dogfighting. And then aside from just raw flight performance, because as we know, flight performance is not everything at top tier by any stretch of the imagination, your loadout is not bad. It's on par with all of the other 12.0s for the most part. You get 6 times 9L, or if you want to carry Sparrows, you can carry Sparrows, but I personally wouldn't recommend it because then your loadout turns into 2 9Ls and 2 Sparrows. So essentially, if you want to take aim 7s, you have to lose 2 total missiles on your airplane, and that's just not something I'm interested in, especially so with the current state of the aim 7 Sparrow. And so I don't take Sparrows, I never even tried them with Sparrows, so I really can't tell you how effective the radar is at guiding the Sparrows. That being said, the radar feels good. I mean, it's definitely adequate for what you're actually doing with this airplane. As an IR missile enjoyer, I have no complaints with it, but if you use the Sparrows, turns out you lose lock all the time, let me know in the comments down below. So missiles are definitely a pass. I do appreciate 6x 9L. It's not necessarily anything impressive by any means at 12.0, but is pretty much the standard at 12.0 battle rating, and so it passes on that front. What I do want to talk about real quick is the countermeasures, because this can be a point of confusion for some people. On paper, the F-20 does have less countermeasures than a lot of these other 12.0 planes. The MiG-29, the F-16 specifically, have 60 countermeasures, and when you run mixed, that comes out to 30 and 30. Well, the thing about the F-20 is that its countermeasures actually deploy as singles, so every press of the countermeasure you deploy 1 chaff and 1 flare, or just 1 flare if you're running standard, which I recommend you do. Just run flares and hug the deck. And so ultimately what this means is you actually have more countermeasure pops than you do with something like an F-16 or a MiG-29 because they drop 2 at a time. So in that front, I would actually say that the countermeasure count is above average, which is kind of surprising. You get more pops than most things at 12.0, at least most of the viable 12.0 aircraft. Of course, there's things like Harriers and stuff like that, which are ridiculous, but those are kind of more meme planes. And lastly, let's talk about the guns. Well, it's pretty easy. It's the same guns as on the F5E. They're M39 cannons. You get 2 of them, and you get a healthy amount of ammo to go with it. I believe it is still the same as the F5, which is a decent amount of trigger time. It's not a ton, but it's enough. And my main gripe with the guns is just inconsistent damage. M39s, sometimes they really do well. Sometimes you just get hits and crits. You never really know. I would much rather have a Vulcan. For those curious, this is the rewards you get for a 6-kill ARB game. That's the match you just watched. And yes, as you would expect, this thing is not that enjoyable to play in a top tier game where you're facing IRCCM missiles all the time and you have no IRCCM of your own. Pretty much most of I didn't get that many granted, but most of my 12.0 games were pretty one and dones. I'd maybe get 1 kill and die, or somebody would just snipe me from somewhere that wasn't spotted like this SU-27 is about to do. Regardless, that's not unusual. Pretty much no plane is very fun in an up tier, and the F-20 is no exception. So with that, I hope you guys enjoyed, and happy grinding.